Folks, thanks for joining us today. My name is John Dubas with Premier Marketing, and we'll be spending the next hour or so discussing the concept and the practice of marketing insurance through faith-based organizations. Part of the intent of today's presentation is to make certain that we look at all aspects of our target audience, our community, and how we can reach them in a manner which is most conducive to the exchange of information. And we have some systems and some different information we're going to go through today. So I'd better shut up on the introduction and just get to some of that piece, I think, is what I need to do. Today's presentation is being recorded, will be made available on our website at premiersmi.com and on our YouTube channel as well. You'll notice in the software package, there's a section for both questions and chat. We ask that you put your questions in the questions box. We find that we normally cover them through the course of the presentation, but I want to make certain that we deliver on any of the information that you have as in your mind that would make you successful in this marketing intent. It does get addressed to agents of different experience. So for some, this might be a review. For some, this might be brand new. But I think we've got some different tools in here that will benefit anybody who is viewing today's presentation. And so let's start with a little bit of level set about who Premier Marketing is. We're a national marketing organization founded in 1968 that's part of the Integrity Marketing Platform. We're licensed in all 50 states, acting as an insurance wholesaler through independent insurance agents such as yourself. And we do so through the highest possible commission levels in those contracts, with recruiting contracts available to those who qualify. And we work through a full portfolio of products that are aimed at our target demographic. So that includes the base Medicare programs, the Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, and Part D prescription drug plans, but it also includes life insurance and annuity products, final expense life insurance plans, pre-need programs, long and short-term care plans, disability income, and ancillary benefits in different key areas of need for the population we address. I go through all this for a number of reasons, but you have right here a topic with which you can discuss offering information through a trusted source in the community. And it's our duty then to make certain that we deliver upon those programs that we offer, because people need our help, plain and simple. And when we look at the Medicare Advantage world, we have the national leaders there in there for you, and many of the strong regionals. These folks, in many cases, can be a very valuable partner when it comes to marketing within the community, particularly within faith-based organizations. Keep this in mind when you go through and you look at the contracts that you offer. Are we set up for everything that we need in our area based on what we've seen in the first quarter of 2023? Or are there some other programs that might be of help to us? And if they are, why? Does it go beyond benefits? Are they able to help us with some of the marketing that comes into play, much as what we can do with the standalone prescription drug programs, which all of them, except a couple here, are part of an MA contract anyway. But drugs are a great topic of interest. And boy, that did not sound good. Prescription medication coverage is a key component of the needs that are expressed by our community. So we want to make certain that we look at these as well. And keep in mind, Mutual of Omaha is a separate contract than their other programs. Clever RX is a standalone discount program and not a PDP program. So some things to take into account there, because those folks, if they have both Medicare Advantage and prescription drug programs within the community, well, those may be very valuable partners for you when you go in and reach out to centers of influence that are looking for presentations and information. Same thing carries over to the Medicare supplements, big portfolio. You've got a lot of tools with our organization that can be very helpful in this space, including offering a complimentary Medicare supplement review en masse or on an individual basis. So some things there that can really help as well when we approach our target audience today. And that includes these ancillary products. We cover these periodically with different carriers and on a generic basis, but you see in each of these areas of demand, of need, the national carriers are there for you. And one of the things that you see in this market now is a proliferation of need, programs, and support. So it gives you the opportunity then to make certain that we address different items of interest. And they can be that hot button for our particular center that we're looking at to do different presentations, because folks need help in these areas because they are a shortfall with whatever program they have as a base medical. We look at the market overall. You hear the aging of the baby boomers, the silver tsunami, one every 10 seconds, 10,000 plus a day. That's true, near exponential growth. For those of us, however, that are at the tail end of the baby boomer generation, we may delay working or are pulling our Medicare benefits because we continue to work. And we see a number of folks that are doing that for one reason or another. Hey, for us, 67 is what we need for our max on Social Security. And folks want to work longer. Pandemics change some things, whatever it happens to be. Well, whatever that situation is, it's still a very large number and is augmented by the portion of the population that's on Medicare that's under the age of 65 for disability and are looking for assistance as well. This gives us three different approaches when we look at how we approach our community and the centers of influence within it, because some of the folks may have support groups for specific portions of our population, and having the product and the approach then to satisfy that need within their community, well, that's your in many circumstances. Those numbers with Medicare are staggering. Keep in mind, we are independent insurance agents with a full profile of product too, and some of that may be reaching into the population that, well, hey, as we talked about here, under the age of 65, how do we reach them? Having a program with an allure, a reason for people to listen can make a difference. So this huge number is even larger when we look at how can we reach the population that has a need for our product. We do so, however, in a manner that will be understandable to our audience. So we need to look at some of the acronyms. Every segment of our society has its own language to a degree, it seems like, but the insurance world is particularly fond of a whole bunch of letters pushed together. And they get that from some of the folks that they work with. Look at that, CMS.gov, 4,420 acronyms. This gives us the opportunity for a presentation within itself. How do we work with Medicare's alphabet soup? Let's go through and look at some of the acronyms. And that gives us an opportunity then to visit about how those acronyms are affected by what we do. And it then enables us as well to communicate with our audience in as thorough a manner as possible. And it reminds us we better know what we're talking about, but also perhaps we should limit some of the use of acronyms in our presentations. So when we look at the population that we're approaching overall, they have choices. So when a person goes on Medicare, they can actually defer Part B. Good strategy for some that are still working. Strange strategy for some that think that's going to save them money, whatever it is. But the majority of people take their A and B. Some will self-insure for the financial shortfall of the base medical coverage, perhaps pick up that standalone prescription drug plan to cover expenses there or help cover. Some will go the Medicare supplement route, that standardized, modernized MedSup. Some will bundle into the Medicare Advantage Part C programs. Each of these are a topic for us to visit with our community and help them with information in those areas, and that hence reveal need within the community for our help and the programs that we offer. So acronyms looking strangely here. We have a couple ways of looking at it. This guide is now adios. We do this throughout the year simply because there are a ton of people that don't do an annual review of their benefits. And at the end of the first quarter here, maybe just finding out that perhaps staying on the plan they've been on doesn't best serve their purpose. Well, you look at it, 71% didn't do an annual review according to Kaiser Family Foundation in some of their latest material, not last year's, but look at that. A whole bunch of people out there that are just content. You get that picture of a person on the couch with bonbons watching soap operas. That ain't the reason. But this tells us we have a population in need of our services, and regardless of the type of base coverage that they have. That gives us, however, an opportunity to discuss the options that a person has with the different coverages. And we see that, gee, that's still a whole lot of people that didn't do a review last year. And we're not even talking about some of the folks that, well, didn't use the government resources that are available for them for determining their choices. But it gives us then an opportunity to deliver information in the manner in which best serves their purposes. Deft research tells us that a lot of the folks coming on Medicare nowadays have done their homework or are doing their homework before they speak to an agent. And the vast majority of people still speak to an agent on these programs. So are we guiding them to sources of material that we can help control, that can help them understand that you are the subject matter expert in that area for that individual? Sometimes that takes a little bit of in-person work, sometimes doing some things virtually, sending them emails or Zooms or whatever, and then there's that hybrid in between. Regardless of that, we have a population that is increasingly digitally savvy. They've been trained by the doctors, by the specialists during the pandemic, during virtual visits. A lot of the pre-work for hospital stays and dental visits are done virtually as well. And hey, it even shapes the rest of our lives. Our faith-based activity, our celebration of our faith is being offered online as well. So that gives us an opportunity to visit with people that are more open to receiving information in this fashion, makes us more time efficient, also makes us compliant with the information that we send out, but it also gives us an avenue to pursue in the faith-based community we didn't have before the pandemic in many circumstances. There were a number of organizations that did do virtual celebrations. Well, gee, some of them, that's how they make their living, it seems like. But we talk about the mom and pops, the people, organizations that are out there helping people with their faith choice in their celebrations. They have systems set up then. So that tells you that the presentations that you use can be both live and virtual. So keep that in mind as we approach the market. And keep in mind as well, excuse me, because of that portfolio of products, the election periods may not be a big concern to us when it comes to offering product. It does, however, shape how we offer that product. So those standard election periods, well, gee, one ends today or tomorrow. What are they, 30 days, half? I can't remember. Anyway, so you have these different election periods that may have a bearing upon some of our topics, because one of the things we can speak to and present to individuals is, gee, did you miss your opportunity to change your plans? Have you reevaluated your programs moving forward? We know over 70% of them have not. So we could actually do a presentation just on special election periods. These are some of the things we see within the organizations that we visit with and within the structure that's given to us by the government as to how we can address this population. And if you look at those 20 fairly standard ones, once people qualify, I would say the majority of people on Medicare would qualify for a special election period. It is, however, a difference in factor in, is it in their best interest? At this point in time, with a number of things going on in the community, it surely can be, because some folks are going to be, what's a good way to put this, awakened by some of the changes that come about with funding changing for certain portions of the lower income population. Now, in addition to those special election periods, we have special election periods. And this too may be an opportunity for us to visit with individuals because they're in an area that has a special election period. And it gives us then the opportunity to couple the information disseminated about this is a special election period because of whatever the special election period is. And it gives us then that opportunity to do a presentation. Here's the basics on Medicare. We wanted to re-review the coverages that you have in order to make certain that you understand you have choices and feel comfortable with the choice that you have currently. Not to mention the fact that you plug in a few drugs, it's probably not going to make them too terribly comfortable unless they get lucky. Carriers remind us of all these special election periods. And if they're doing some of this, keep in mind, they may well have marketing dollars or incentives to use in those particular markets if they are bringing that to the fore of their discussion with agents. It's a great way to keep us on our toes as well and make certain that we look for those FEMA steps to make things work. So we take all that base information. What we're looking at is some of the fundamentals of what we already have. How do we take that and make it a solid entry into one of the greatest centers of influence within our community, and do so with a bit of a pure heart, shall we put it that way? It's awfully important for us as we go through and we market insurance through faith-based organizations that we do so in a manner that befits that organization. We do a presentation with the board, with the pastor, with the scheduler, whomever it is that gets us through the door, and we speak to them about what we are and what we look to do. And I'm going to cheat and tell you that in the presentation coming up, there's a presentation within the presentation that will help us in that particular area. Once again, we're able to deliver virtually or in person. And if we're dealing with a congregation or an organization that has that technology, many of them would prefer to use that as opposed to a reality presentation, one flesh to flesh, but we have the option to do both. And a lot of that is predicated upon the technology that the organization uses and the choices they have. Because frankly, we can use Zoom, we can do whatever as a vehicle to deliver virtually. But if that organization already uses electronic technology, making use of that can both, one, make certain you understand what all is being involved with the presentation for that community, and we're able to then understand better why they need our help. And that's obvious to us, but for others, maybe not so much. Plus, it gives the folks within that congregation the comfort level because they're already using their systems. Not that Zoom is brain surgery, but you know what I mean. It gives you then the opportunity to walk the path that others have, that others are comfortable with. And we see that across the board. God bless Google, no pun intended. All you got to do is clip that in there or visit your particular church, mosque, synagogue, whatever it happens to be online, and they're doing services online. I have certain health conditions that limit some of my exposure, and in that circumstance, I do these a lot with my church, and they have them scheduled, they have them made available. I have had also the recent misfortune of losing, I guess, a step niece is how you say it. My brother's wife has a son and daughter, had from a previous marriage, and the daughter passed away in her 40s. I am unable to get to those services, but I have a link where it's being streamed. So there are different things we have to come in and take into account when we look at online services, because our efforts to educate a population that will respond to outreach through their faith-based organization probably isn't responding to any other type of marketing program. So we have that, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to be open to delivery of such information in such a fashion. That may be a little practice on our part. For some of us that have done a few hundred of them, not so much, but that's a step for many people. And that is then a question of practice, practice, practice. We look at why we want to approach the faith-based community. Now, for some of us, they're like, gee, John, well, duh. But some folks out there are thinking, okay, we're out there to sell a church. We're out there to sell a mosque. We're out there to sell a synagogue. In a way, we are, because they have need of our services as well. It does, in many cases, result in a sale, but the intent on the outward purposes of why we approach an organization, well, there you go. And you must take into account, too, that if you are an agent or agency that does property and casualty, faith-based organizations have a need for that as well. That's a little beyond my mean. I haven't had a property and casualty license for over 20 plus years, but it's something to consider. But if you look at the programs you have in your portfolio, that's right in your wheelhouse. You look at the base medical programs that a person has available in an area, and you go through and you use Medicare.gov to illustrate all the programs, or you take advantage of your abilities within Medicare Center to deliver upon that information. You're looking at an opportunity to disseminate information directly to a prospect that isn't a hot transfer, isn't a response off Facebook, isn't a response off direct mail. They're there live and in person right in front of you, and you can address the needs almost immediately, depending upon your approach. We also then have the opportunity, as I mentioned, to bring into account the other programs that we offer. I'm a Medicare guy. I'm an ancillary product guy. I haven't sold a life insurance policy for a long time. We'll put it that way. However, that doesn't apply to many of you. And what we have is an opportunity to visit with the congregation about final expense insurance to make certain that their congregation is funded in that manner. So when one passes, they don't pass the hat for the burial or whatever it happens to be. And of course, there is the charitable bequest that is available with life insurance programs that can really create a legacy within our family, faith family, that well as well. Of course, I mentioned the Medicare and then the ancillary. Well, a lot of the ancillary products are demand products. So you can go in with an approach of, well, here's information and a presentation on dental. Here's why you need it. Here's the programs we have available. Here's how you become involved. It reminds me a lot of the presentations we did in the Medicare Advantage world before pre-MIPA. We did a presentation that walked all the way through an application compliantly at the time. Still can do it now if we do it properly. And it gives you then also that opportunity for some of the sore spots within the community that affect us all. Cancer. Here are programs that can help you deal with that expense. And it gives us heart attack, stroke, same sort of thing. It gives us that same kind of mentality then of take care of it now. There are so many non-medical expenses that come with dealing with a chronic illness, and having the dollars to address those as your situation changes can be unbelievably helpful. So we need to look at that. And that gives us then the chance to go back into our video library and look at, well, here's chronic illness type of programs. Let's brush up on the overall market, and then what within that do I feel comfortable with to use as part of my approach. Remember, we're going to talk about that in a minute if I shut up and get going. It gives us then the opportunity to look at and realize why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah, we're marketing. Yeah, we're out to make a dollar, but we're also out there to protect a community that may be a bit vulnerable, or maybe one that lies really close to our heart. We're talking with our own church, our own synagogue, our own mosque, whatever it happens to be. We are sharing information with the community that is of a like mind to ours, and to make certain that we plan for the inevitable. Things are going to happen. All the quaint little analogies I could use in that circumstance are really bad when we talk about faith-based communities. So I'm going to skip that. But it gives us then the opportunity to help people understand that we have a listing of programs that can make a difference for you, and we're going to utilize those on a rotating basis to make certain that we stay in front of the community as well. Because, hey, one and done, that's exercising just to feel the pain. So we want to make certain we do things on a pre-planned basis. And that gives us then the opportunity to realize why we're doing it. We're explaining current coverages. We're reassuring them of what's available, additional opportunities they may have, and because of many circumstances as to how you approach setting up the appointment in these locations, it's no obligation. It's non-threatening. You're semi-vetted in their eyes as to, well, gee, if the church is letting him do this, then he must be okay. She must be trustworthy, whatever it is. So that gives us then the opportunity to visit with folks who are perhaps a little more perceptive to our message because, hey, it gives them an opportunity to examine their health benefits, even though open enrollment was passed clear on Pearl Harbor Day. Remember though, 70+% of them have the opportunity to re-review their coverages with need because they didn't do it before. Most of the things that we offer, well, they come with a low financial obligation, particularly if you're looking in the Medicare world. Dollars they're already spending. Same thing perhaps with the need to help their congregation after they're gone. Those may be dollars they haven't spent, but there may be dollars that they're using to one degree or another. Many folks are really good at tithing. Some, however, will take a portion of that into a financial tithe and use the other portion for one other reason, whatever it may be. It may be to donate to causes within the community. It may be to fund a life insurance program with the church as the beneficiary. It gives them then an opportunity to feel better about themselves and feel better about the group in which they're associating, because we're working for a common cause, and we then give them the opportunity to use programs to do just that. Now, we look at Medicare Advantage plans, a whole lot of them that we deal with are low premium. It gives us an opportunity for other sales as well. Medicare supplements, well, it's premium dollars. We can do the review to see if we can save some money. Each of those circumstances, however, it gives us the opportunity to use the topics as our draw for a meeting as well. And it may be in an area that specifically needs that specific information. We do a series on Medicare 101. Here's one of the options that are available to you. Medicare supplements. You need to know about your prescription drugs. Here's the option with Medicare Advantage. So that gives us a rolling bit of an itinerary with the groups that we visit as well. And of course, that life insurance component. I know many people will look at this and go, well, that's a little bit ghastly. Not when you think about it. I mean, we're doing the same thing with our faith family as we are to our regular family. You don't take it out for yourself, you take it out for them. And this gives us then that opportunity to do so in front of an audience that may be very receptive to it and may also be the folks that we need to talk to in order to help our partners within that congregation, the leadership of that congregation, because they need our help. They need an additional program, whatever you want to say. John, they're not a business. Some of them seem to be. Some of them really seem to be pure of heart, but all of them need dollars to keep the lights on. And one of the things that we have seen in studies recently is the involvement of people in organizations within organized religion. The percentage of people is way down, and attendance is still down in these different locations simply because of the pandemic and the atmosphere that's out there. So we have a stressor within our community that doesn't deal with groceries, doesn't talk about gasoline, doesn't talk about, gee, you need furniture. We're talking about, we are the delivery system for your faith. And this gives them then the opportunity to look at perhaps additional financial stability. Well, gee, are they setting up a legacy program with life insurance? Are we freeing dollars for the congregation with the programs that we offer so they have an increased tithe potential? What are we looking at when we talk about the products we're offering and how it affects the people that unlock the church door and turn on the lights? For you, obviously, this is an avenue that outside of perhaps providers of care, doctors, certain doctors, is the most trusted of environments to address the prospects who may not be responding to any other type of advertisement. They don't care what J.J. Walker says. William Shatner, he's still lost in space to them. He doesn't have a bearing. They're not responding to the commercials, but the commercials are creating questions for them. And many of them will look at the fact they're getting mail from carriers and your agents, whatever it is. What makes you different? Well, we're in an environment that's reaching that population that's not responding to that other outreach. And it gives us then the opportunity to perhaps look at specific groups within the communication and tailor our presentation in that fashion. It also gives us that opportunity to do as we always do, or as we should, create a referral possibility as well. Because if we are working with one congregation, the heads of the congregation tend to be talking about other people in other congregations, the heads there as well. Or people may have a household that has more than one church, whatever it is. It gives you a referral possibility into additional sites as well. How do you find them? Oh, gee. Internet once again, but Church Angel is a great way for you to go in and plug some data, and they'll give you the name, date, location. Here's the contact information. Your then approach would be, do I go out and knock on doors, or do I smile and dial? I think part of that depends upon the size of the church, because some of them aren't manned, staffed. They don't have somebody in the church 24/7 or even on a regular work day, but they have people manning the phones. So that's a consideration when you're looking at those centers of community that are embedded deeply, that aren't huge, but they have an audience we need to reach. The same thing as well, too. If we look at some of the mega churches, well, one of the first pushbacks you have is many times there are agents that are part of that congregation and have approached the church. That's the key difference, because if they haven't, that gives you an avenue for, here's the presentation, this is what we look to do. Sometimes the folks don't think about the agents within the communication or within the congregation. If they do, however, well, gee, have they done anything for you? Let's talk with them and let's set up something so they're involved, whatever it takes in that circumstance. You know, same thing with different faiths as well. You can find the synagogues fairly easily. You can work with the different mosques that are in your community. There are temples available. Well, kind of. Different faiths celebrate differently. And I've had the honor and occasion on a couple of times of sitting through an all-day type of service with a faith that I was fairly unfamiliar with. So some different things that you can come into play with. I didn't know Hindus did that. I didn't know this. Oh, gee, they are having a quasi-health fair, but they also have other organizations, subgroups within their organization that they're pointing out they need my help. Outside the general population, which if you're a Medicare agent, you have a whole lot of people that aren't eligible for your programs. If you're across the board, that gives you a little bit of a different incentive to work things. But many of the larger churches will have senior groups. I went to a church called All Saints, and it was the Golden Saints in their church. There are also different caregiver support groups for very large ones. So you'll see that for folks that have certain chronic illnesses, different pieces within the community that might need our help and our information as well. And there are, of course, the staging of different social activities through the different groups that are part of that church as well. So depending upon the size of the organization, we got a whole bunch of different people that we can talk to, and it depends upon then what is our entry into that. And a lot of it is just asking some basic questions about hosting these different types of events and nailing down who we're supposed to speak with. It gives us then the opportunity to kind of polish that rock and figure out, hey, this may be a group of more than just seniors, or this is a group where we are addressing the disabled and their decision makers. So some different things that come into play that are part of how we ask the questions that are needed to get into and visit with the right people. Because, hey, that's our first job. Can we get past the door? Like on every type of marketing situation, how are we addressing and utilizing the gatekeeper to point us where we need to go to get a true decision? You have a number of different approaches that you can use with that. Now, keep in mind, today's presentation is being recorded and you have these. They're not rocket science. It's a question, however, of just pinning down who that person is, how you can talk to them, and whether or not then during the course of your discussion with that individual, you verify it's the right person, but you also then are able to nail down, here's the topic that we're going to use to approach this congregation. Ton of them. You want to reference your point presentation as you go into it. At this point in time, we have a lot of things going on with the retraction of some benefits or dollars made into the community. So speaking about low income subsidy or Medicare savings plans can be a great topic for us. If you wanted even to use the SNAP information, which is a point of confusion in certain communities and not really utilized in that circumstance because, gee, what are you going to sell them? Food? No. We're giving them the opportunity to satisfy that particular need. We then have the opportunity then to prove ourselves and make certain that we can do analysis for them in other areas as well. So some things to think about when it comes to what topic am I going to use to approach the community. That may well and does vary throughout the year. So as we go through these different approaches, it's important to look into them and make them you. Gee, John, there's a lot of I's in there. Well, yeah, there is. We can make it the royal we. We can do whatever we want to in that circumstance, but we need to look at the message and see if this is one that fits our approach. It may be something you hadn't thought of, or it may be something that you're not comfortable with. Eleanor Roosevelt says, do one thing every day that makes you uncomfortable. Well, that could be a whole bunch of different things, but in this circumstance, it makes us align our thoughts as to why we are doing this. We're reaching out to a population that's probably not responding to any other type of outreach, but they need our help. And for whatever reason it may happen to be, it then makes certain that you have a marketing organization, carriers that can deliver upon information in different topics on which you're not as comfortable. So the approach has that, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to know everything right up front about what we're talking about. That's why you have the support on the back end. So we look at that, and it's the same type of approach for whatever faith it happens to be, but it gives us then the idea as to what questions help us initiate a discussion for these meetings. Because let's face it, some of these large organizations, they're getting hit on all the time. What makes you any different? We'll talk about that in just a second too, because you got to keep in mind too that you approach these with confidence. You're a licensed certified insurance professional and you're delivering information to an organization that probably really needs your help. And you're prepared to deliver upon that information because you have prepared for the circumstances. We've looked at the different approaches and we're looking at it with, hey, I'm going to talk to them about legacy safeguard and final expense. You've got your track set up. That may well be the hot button for the person that organizes these meetings within the congregation. Or right now, in the first quarter, there are some folks that are really confused by their prescription coverage. They stayed on the same plan. It should be the same, right? Well, we all know it changes from year to year. And then how do we do a real evaluation? Keep in mind, go back to the first part of the presentation. All those tools the government has out there, they're not using them. They need you in order to deliver the information and explain it. And it all depends too of making certain that we're doing what we need to do and we're addressing the process in order to get in front of the congregation. So as I mentioned, they've probably been hit up by a whole bunch of folk. What makes the difference? What makes the difference? Well, some of it may be the follow-up leave time presentation that we're going to show you in just a moment as well. This illustrates how topics can rotate throughout the year, how they can be of greatest interest. So using the ANOC during the annual election period, where folks are confused about their coverages, they can become a bit more acquainted on those as you do an overall review for that particular area. Many folks may not realize they qualify for assistance for different programs, and that can make a big difference throughout the year. Not as big of a topic in many circumstances during the annual election period, though it should be. And of course, all the publicity that's out there that's bringing out all these different questions, and we have to deal with them in a fashion that's different than we have in the past, because we're in that new normal. We are affected by some of these changes, and that may well influence the choices that people make in their coverages and where they get their information. They're going to church, well, public venue like that, huge open spaces, you have a different mindset with some of these folks as to how they will pull information. It's also an opportunity for a particular congregation to use these programs as part of their community outreach, not necessarily just to recruit people into their church, but it is part of their mission to deliver information into the community. So some of these meetings that you set up may well involve the neighborhood in addition to the congregation. Well, the congregation might live miles away for all we know. However, that house four lots down from the church, well, they may well be an individual that needs our help in information dissemination on the topics that we lay out. So this gives the congregation then an opportunity not only to serve their community, but also the greater community at large. And many times, as part of our approach, we mention that there's no sales at the initial event. Now, don't freak. It's something that is patience. You know, it's that whole mouse looking up at the eagle type of thing, or that sort of thing. Or Warren Buffett, you can't have a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. It's time in certain circumstances. So we want to make certain that people come into this in an atmosphere that is totally non-used car salesman. No offense to used car salesmen. It then also gives that congregation the comfort of knowing that they can speak to this possibility of information coming from a trusted source where there's no obligation initially. You're going to set it up as a sales presentation. You're going to collect names as they are willing to deliver them. You can't force them, but it gives you, however, that information on the follow-up, which in many cases in a group setting is what you need anyway. Yeah, you can tag some people in a meeting. I've had great luck with meetings of 100 plus, and I come in with 70% of the applications. That's the old days. This circumstance may be one where it requires a follow-up presentation, where we set a meeting for information dissemination, and we set up a follow-up meeting as well. So the congregation has the opportunity to take action in that same environment that is trusting. So that gives us the opportunity then to deliver the information and then deliver the opportunity for change. And many of the churches will help publicize with, inserts into the church bulletin, notifications in the church itself, their website if they use it, if they do communications with their congregation as well. And there are certain congregations where you'll get the information straight from the pulpit, where the pastor or the leader of the church will say, hey, we've got information here. We feel it's in your best interest to look at it. So what topics are we going to look at? Well, we already talked about looking at some things based on portfolio. Here are some throw it up against the wall type of things as to hot buttons. What makes a difference? So we can go in with a 101. We can speak to the different components within Medicare. We can talk about telehealth, a hot topic in many circumstances. And then, of course, the assistance programs, the low-income subsidy Medicare savings programs, and other government assistance programs. Where'd that come from, John? I'm going to show you something in just a moment. Many people are very curious about their Social Security. You have carriers that can help you there with presentations. And then, of course, different health conditions. Certain congregations are very affected by that. And we're seeing a smaller percentage of folks in organized religion, but we're also seeing an aging demographic in many of them. So we're subject to some of these different health conditions and, of course, the inevitable death and taxes. Well, here's some things with a system that can really help you there. And then, of course, you got folks that, oh, gee, what's the guy's name that did all the libraries, yada, yada, big steel, crushed his opponents early, and then felt bad about it at the end of life and tried to make a difference in the communities that he basically was a robber baron on. This isn't the same either, but if we have dollars available as a congregate and we have an organization that's near and dear to us, setting up a life insurance policy and having the proceeds go to that congregation in the form of a charitable bequest make a huge difference. So some things to think about there. We need to rotate those topics too. You can repeat them or look at, gee, what do I do next? Here's my series on Medicare. Here's some things on some extras. Here's some things on health. You can have a series of them and be consistent in the delivery of those topics in the congregation as part of the route. Because keep in mind, we're working with one church. Remember, they're talking to others. Perhaps we can set up that same sort of arrangement with other organizations in that same area or within that same influence circle. We want to make certain that we file all that we're doing as a sales event. I know a lot of people, you don't have to file that. Well, you probably don't. However, I have a very large posterior and I like to keep it covered. And I'm not afraid of the systems that I use that can influence a secret shopper. So I'm not worried about that because I've studied my presentations. I've got the gathered material that is compliant. I'm marketing hand in hand with the church leadership. I'm doing a great presentation, very thorough, and I'm following up. So I am compliant throughout the process, and we're utilizing it in a situation that basically, gee, you need to differentiate yourself by your process. We need to have that planned ahead of time as well. Remember, we're going back and we're using that full portfolio and we're making certain that we've prepped for it. So we've done our studies. Most folks that are active in the Medicare space, many anyway, will be familiar and comfortable with the low income subsidies that help people with their medications. Do we necessarily want to use it in that language? Well, we may speak of extra help. We may speak of that sort that makes people more comfortable with that. And that may well be the hot button. Do you, however, have an organizational skill to do what we talked about here? We've done our prep. Are we prepared with a presentation on that topic? And if not, how do we get one? Talking about that in a second too. So let's look at this. This is a piece that put together a number of years ago and keep updating. And it is, pardon me, a presentation that is a curriculum vitae in a manner of speaking, your resume in the community, but it is also a presentation piece that you can use with, okay, I got to go before the church board, or I got 3 people that are part of a committee that makes a difference as to whether or not I get to speak to the rest of the congregation. So what are we looking to do with this? This is something that, you modify it, make it yours. Need a picture on this, John. You really do. I didn't put a picture on it. So it gives us that same sort of talking points for that point of point of contact. That may well be the gatekeeper. What makes you any different? Well, here, I'm going to show you. This is who I am. This is what I represent. This is why we're here. This is what I'm offering, what I'm hoping to accomplish, and I want to be involved in making certain that your community has the information they need for choices. That's all it is. So who am I? Well, here's some shtick on John Dubas. Had a license for a long time. I'm a Nebraska boy. Had a couple certifications here, and have the past experience to help people in this area. And a little blurb about who I am. You'll want a better looking picture than that, dude. And you'll want your information on it. But humanize yourself through this portion of it. This is who I am. This is why I do what I do. There we go. Once again, you're telling them, I have a full portfolio of products that help with different needs. And many communities need information on these programs specifically. And what we look to do is set up a rotation of these programs because there are different people within your congregation that have different needs. But we can start with whatever our entry topic may be. And they may stop you and go, well, yeah, gee, that's great, but I really need information about these different programs, because we've got questions coming in now with people that haven't really used their coverage through the first quarter, and all of a sudden it's different. Can you help them understand what they have? And of course, then options as to whether or not that is the best coverage moving forward. We're laying in a whole bunch of information about the choices that we have available. And for us as agents, take a peek at these, because this can make a difference for you feeling comfortable with your approach, and then knowing, well, hey, at least I know what I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to have a track to follow with these different programs that they say, oh, gee, LIS, oh, that's financial assistance for prescriptions. Yeah, we need to talk about that. How can we do that? Well, there are a bunch of presentations already out there set up for us through the Medicare Learning Network and through organizations such as ourselves and through carriers. They have information as well. So we have some of the general topics for those getting started with Medicare. We can look at topics that are of interest to them. Well, perhaps they've been on Marketplace and they're moving to Medicare. What can they do? There's a presentation ready for that. You have a presentation ready for folks that are under the age of 65 and are disabled. This is a great way to access a portion of the community that others haven't been able to get a hold of. And you have the sales track to follow that. You have the programs that lay out from CMS, and these are approved for use, that give you the opportunity to speak to what is Medicare Advantage and other options other than traditional Medicare. And if we have traditional Medicare, we have a lot of folks that have those, well, they call them Medicare supplement plans, Medigap plans. You got a presentation on that as well. And keep in mind, it's been 3 years, but you still have folks that have a change as to what plan types they can pick up as they age into Medicare. So that may be one of the things that prompt a discussion for this as being one of the first topics. And keep in mind, in most markets, they're not locked in. You might have to deal with some of the drug coverage through the prescription drug plans, and there may be certain states where you have guarantee issue periods where others don't, but it's a great topic to use across the board. And then, of course, you've got that information about prescription drugs. Man, it's in the newspapers, it's on TV, it's on all social media as to how the drug companies are doing this, or there are changes in how prescriptions are covered for insulin, things of that nature. It's a great topic of discussion. And so utilizing this program where it speaks to a topic of interest can open the door to a multitude of discussions thereafter. They want to mention about some of the stuff that's made available by marketing organizations and then the carriers. This is one that really puts out a lot of material, so I use it in the presentations. But if you're active with a particular carrier that is a force to be considered in your market, they have this information. Well, look, you square in the computer monitor and say, hey, they probably have a Medicare 101. This company does. I know a half a dozen others that do, in addition to us having one. So access to Medicare 101 is fairly simple. And then as we get into some of the things that are a source of topic right now, with the contraction of Medicaid benefits, with the funding changes with the SNAP programs for food, you have presentations you can use specifically for assistance programs. So that piece that comes into play for Medicare savings programs, it's personalized. Hey, gee, that one even has that mug of that guy on it again. How do we do that? Well, it's compliant. Font size is right. Everything else is there. We didn't change the presentation. We have the opportunity, however, to identify ourselves. And here it is for those Medicare savings plans and for low income subsidy. So you have a system then, a track to follow when it comes to what am I going to talk about? I got in there. Now, they want to talk about assistance for the cost of meds. What am I going to do? There's a good, solid track to follow. This is a program I'm going to do some additional work on and getting you details in the future. There's a lot of information about the withdrawal of SNAP funds, supplemental nutrition assistance programs, the old days, food stamps. However, what you see with some of the qualification levels with this, it's still kind of in that ballpark of the folks we're talking to in many circumstances. So this can be a very viable way of delivering your message. It is also non-threatening, and it is also a key component of information that churches need. Many of them may have their own soup kitchen, so to speak, or a food center of some sort. However, this is a way we can speak to how an organization that doesn't have that, or even if they do, how they can get help with food moving forward. Remember, those special election periods allow us to change throughout the year. So whatever topic that you choose would be pertinent for your congregation, we have a number of people that I will look you square in the eye and tell you they may qualify for a change now. You may be that factor that improves their situation now because they qualify for a special election period and you weren't aware of it. Oh, we're in lock-in. They can't change. Yeah, they can. Any of them can. Legacy Safeguard, great system to set up the inevitable for the inevitable. I'm using it personally simply because I have concerns in that area. It, however, gives us an opportunity to approach final expense insurance through a process that's dictated by the action of our prospect. And it gives them then the peace of mind as to how this system can help their family once they're gone. So some things to consider. If you haven't heard of Legacy Safeguard, or if you haven't used it, or if you don't have the tools, we need to make certain that our folks in our final expense department can get you that information and show you how valuable this can be, not just in approaching centers of influence within the community, but also how it can help us in our day-to-day sales activity as well. We have programs out there for Social Security planning. Mutual of Omaha does some really cool things in that area. At Charitable Bequest, once again, that is a simple package of, well, gee, here's some life insurance and here's what it's going to cost and here's how it's going to benefit the church. We're setting it up this way. Pretty simple in how that's delivered. So what we're doing is we're facilitating a real center of influence in the community that is growing their reputation because they are delivering information that the congregations need, and it is delivering benefits then to those folks that take part in it. It may well vastly improve their health benefits that they have in play, could lower their financial obligations that give them a different outlook on life, plain and simple, and an opportunity to further support their church. It gives us all sorts of information that we need in different topics, and it helps us too, by our preparation for this campaign, to speak to others within the community. We talk about referrals, and I have a really cool, I think, program for referrals. But one thing that I've neglected to put into play there, and I now am kicking myself, is, hey, what groups do you belong to that can benefit from the information that we shared here today? I have a ton of different presentations that I can do, so you can work referrals as well. And that may well be the difference as to whether or not you get in front of a particular congregation, because that person you may be speaking with may be a key in that approval process. So we want to make certain that we then give the opportunity to set a date, move forward, and get it done. Like older community or older comedian, that's the word I was looking for. Get her done. That's what we're looking to do. We're setting it up. We're delivering information. We're going to take care of people, and we're able to do it virtually or in person, as I mentioned before. And that gives us then the opportunity to speak to that point person within that, and you discover additional ways that you can reach out in the community because they're telling you you're delivering this in that fashion. So how do we make certain that we can do that same thing repeatedly? Gives us then too an opportunity to visit with that person. We can leave this behind. We can set it up as a PDF and send it to them electronically. There are a number of different ways that we're going through and marking our territory by a fairly simple, fairly brief presentation. There's only 25 slides altogether, and some of you may be more verbose than I, or you might be a little more strained within it. But delivering the message is going to prompt an opportunity, and it's going to raise your standing in the community. And that sounded bad. When you're approaching a church so you can glorify yourself? No. But folks are going to know I have this information, I can deliver it, and I can be that person they need moving forward. So we've got a why me presentation that we can use within this community. And we're going to do it through Premier for a number of different reasons. One, we can supply you those presentations, of course, and deliver upon what we spoke of today already. And I'm already past an hour. I apologize. I'll do this very quickly at the end. It, however, gives us then the opportunity to make certain our portfolio is where it needs to be. Oh, gee, John, you're after contracts. Yeah, after contracts, but we also want to make certain that we're able to deliver upon a solution to a need that we've discovered. Gee, John, I've never done long-term care before. People want to talk about long-term care. What's the difference between that and short-term care? That is a question for our long and short-term care department. They are there to help you in that circumstance, and that includes becoming contracted for programs that can deliver solutions to those questions that are being raised. We also want to make certain that you have a coverage for yourself. So you have discounted errors and admissions coverage for a qualified agent. What makes you a qualified agent? Well, you got a contract with us. This, however, covers you regardless of whom you work through. Premier's huge. We have a huge portfolio of products. We have a huge portfolio of products throughout the country, but we're not everywhere with every product. No one is. This is a program you own, and it covers and satisfies that requirement that insurance companies have in order to obtain a contract. And I liked it so much, I repeated it here. Looks like somebody last night didn't delete a slide. Pardon me. We also do the same thing in order to help keep your license stay in play. So we discount continuing education programs through our association with WebCE to keep that in play. We also give you an opportunity to protect your own ability to earn with a modified guarantee issue disability income plan you put upon yourself on which you're paid a commission. We want to make certain that you have protection on your ability to earn as well. Much as what we talked about with today's presentation being recorded, past presentations have been as well. They're listed on our website and our YouTube channel. This gives you an opportunity to go in there and look at different topics and review them at our leisure 24/7 and see how this can increase our skill set with our target here. So some thoughts on, well, gee, they're talking about providers in the area. How do I approach providers? Well, that's in there. Oh, they're talking about this particular company. Someone said, if you're going to have this coverage, you got to have this company. Well, that might give you an indication of, do I have details on that company? And is that the gospel, pun intended, in this particular circumstance? You do also have an opportunity to make certain that you're being fully compensated for your work. Now, this is about to go behind the wall into our agent portal because of changes in compliance that come into play, but it lists the different carrier incentives on different programs that is allowable for that. You can't do it for MA or PDP, but you can for about everything else. It may well qualify you for carrier trips with that particular company and qualify you for incentive trips that Premier offers, including, well, this year, our producers convention returned from its hiatus within the pandemic. Next month, a whole bunch of folk are going to Mexico. We'll see some of the different things that roll out for next year. And we, of course, want to make certain that we put you in front of folks. So we work with you to, gee, John, churches. What was that website you talked about? we'll walk through with you to get contact list for particular initiatives. This, however, is a simple call list, butted up against do not call. That helps you if you're a smile and dial person. Increasingly hard to do, still viable in many circumstances, but the difference you have when you butt something up against do not call list versus a regular poll, night and day. So some things we need to be really aware of in that area. And of course, information on these different campaigns that we have. I really like to advise people to do is when they are engaged in a full-fledged marketing campaign, they tie together multiple ways of augmenting that campaign. So if you've done retail, I'm working with churches and providers in the area. If you are in the faith-based initiatives, well, gee, I need to work with providers and retailers in the area. Gee, I'm working with some particular physicians. I want them to be aware of my contacts in the community and how I reach out to other centers of influence, including faith-based organizations and those that are delivering upon the prescriptions that are being prescribed by you, Dr. So-and-so. So some different things where you can tie them all in. There are some carriers that will generate leads and work with agents and with they have had a history. And then some other topics we're going to deal with here one-on-one. That includes a discounted mailing program, drives down the cost of the mail, gives you the opportunity to do so consistently with this program. And that gives you then the opportunity to garner true success with direct mail. It's not dead. Yeah, perhaps the lead pool is smaller than it's been in the past. Some of that's compliance based. Some of that is the fact that electronic communication has taken over a whole bunch of things. But the target demographic we deal with, they open their mail. You have an opportunity to qualify in two different circumstances based on production for both health programs and final expense programs. We work through preferred lead vendors to do so because we vet them. We make certain that their systems are there to deliver the responses to you as quickly as possible. And we monitor their outreach in order to make certain that we all stay compliant. We also have a program that can help you fill in your leads, your scheduling throughout the week through direct mail responses never been touched. Cost will vary from area to area, time to time, that sort of thing. But it is a great way to make certain that your calendar is full of people that need your help and have raised their hands in this circumstance for that help. Internet leads, this system is through a vendor that we use that generates final expense and Medicare leads. One of the things we see when we deal with Facebook, which is the social media piece that many of the demographic that we pursue utilize, well, they'll pop in, they'll ask for questions. You know, you can get an immediate response. They may be doing it with multiple people as well. And they're expecting a pretty microwave response. Got a friend who got a lead in at 2 o'clock in the morning from Facebook. 6 o'clock in the morning, when she called them, they had already moved someplace else. So if you're looking at a microwave situation for generating leads, be it this one or one we brought in that utilizes search engine optimization to do it, well, you better be on top of it because that lead may go someplace up pretty quickly. Great way to get leads quick. You got to make certain you have a system in order to address them very quickly as well. And that is kind of the intent of the lead programs that you have within Lead Center, where you can purchase leads delivered to you through a hot transfer or inserted into your CRM, and you control it based on budget, based on lead flow. You don't want 30 leads coming in one day because you want to hit them when they're hot. So that makes a difference, and you have that control within this system where, okay, I've used my budget for the month, I'm done with it. Or, gee, I only want 4 a day, or whatever the parameters you put in play, you have that capability within this, and they are in a CRM, so you can track them and make certain that they're handled properly in your mind's eye. You do have also the opportunity to download a T65 locator where you register, bring it down to your smart device, register for it. They see that you have a contract with us. And so it's the whole JJ Walker thing. It's free then, doesn't cost you anything. You can set up parameters for a particular search in a geographic area, and that can help you a number of different ways. It can help you plan where you are going to market, but also if you stack appointments, you're doing them live, one cancels, who's in this area that I can visit with and do so compliantly. So if you're going to door knock, obviously you're not doing it for Medicare Advantage or PDP programs, but you sure can for dental, sure can for Med Sup, sure can for final expense. Where are people that are good targets for that within my target market, specifically pinpointed today? That referral program, it is a kind of a tutorial of sorts, or a reminder of how and when to ask for a referral. And that is crucial in the sales process. You can do that with a prospect, starting right up front. Great to have an appointment with you, Ms. Prospect. Give others that may benefit from the information that we're going to share, that you're comfortable with having in an appointment. So you're taking one lead and growing it right off the bat, working your way through an entire sales presentation in that same manner, just reminding ourselves to take a step back, take a breath, and go, well, gee, what about this? You know other people that need help with dental or whatever it happens to be. It's also a way you can go back to your book of business and visit with them about different programs. Well, hello, Mr. Client. I've got a new dental program that's made available in our area through me. Do you know of folks that need help with their dental expenses? I mean, it's a simple question. Simple answer in many cases may be, yeah, me. So it's a way to involve your book, but it's also a way to generate referrals as well. We do all this because we want your business. We do all this because John likes to talk, evidently. We've gone past our hour. My apologies. We want to be referable to your friends within our industry as well. And these are simple things that you can do and incorporate into your marketing program very, very quickly. There are different carriers that ask you to do modules for community events. Many of them you may have already done. If you've done retail, you have. Outside of that, however, depending upon the topic you're using, it doesn't require any additional certification on your part. It does require study. You got a contract, you got to study, you got to be comfortable with that program and the requirements that come with that product. But as I mentioned, you can put it in play right away. So at this point in time, I'm going to check really quickly to make certain that we've covered questions. Now keep in mind, I threw a lot of information at you very quickly, a lot of different presentation material. Those will be made available through your marketer. You can email me as well. You got my information, and we will make certain that you have those current and working with you and your marketer with Premier, making certain that they're tailored for you. So for the folks I see on here that I recognize that have done business with us here at Premier in the past, I thank you for that business. Really appreciate it. We hope to deepen that relationship through initiatives such as this and other programs that we offer. For those of you that are checking us out, thank you. Look forward to the opportunity to earn your business and get you the detail you need to be one of our valued partners as well. But for everybody who's viewed this presentation or participated in it, you've invested a portion of your most valuable resource, and that's your time. And I thank you for that. So until we are able to visit again, I'm going to wish you good selling. Thanks so much. We will talk to you soon.